I had 3 minutes before his dessert arrived, and the sniper's light hit his forehead. My hand trembled just enough to smudge the ink as I scrawled across a napkin. The paper felt flimsy, insignificant, like it might dissolve before it ever reached him. Around me, the Palazzo hummed with the low vibration of power. Silver against bone china, hushed conversation in Italian and English, the rustle of designer fabric against hand-stitched leather. Outside, Chicago's February wind clawed at the windows. But in here, everything was velvet and gold, stifling like breathing through silk. I approached table 3 like I was walking toward the edge of a cliff. Abelino Marino sat facing the entrance, his position deliberate, tactical. He looked like something out of a Renaissance painting, sharp Mediterranean features, dark hair precisely styled, a charcoal Brioni suit that probably cost more than my entire year at community college. His hand rested on the white tablecloth, fingers still, controlled. Beside him, Vicky Roeder tilted her head close, murmuring something that made her gloss lips curve into a perfect smile. Her emerald necklace caught the candlelight, scattering green fire across the table. She looked like a woman celebrating her future. She wasn't. 15 minutes ago, I'd heard her arrange his murder. The walk-in fridge at the Palazzo wasn't really for storage. It was a climate-controlled fortress in the back of the kitchen, all stainless steel and harsh fluorescent lighting that made everything look sterile, clinical. I'd been sent back to grab fresh burrata for table 7, navigating past shelves of imported cheeses and cured meats, when I heard the voice, female, cold, speaking rapid Italian. I froze between the prosciutto di Parma and the wheels of Parmigiano, my hand still reaching for the container I'd come for. Tavolo tray, vicino alla finestra. Table 3, near the window. My Italian was service level at best. Enough to know when someone wanted their pasta al dente versus ben cotta, but I caught fragments. Table 3, the window, Gia in position, already in position. Tre uomini. Quando arriva il dolce? 3 men, when the dessert arrives. Then her voice dropped lower, switching to something that sounded Eastern European, harder, all sharp edges and brutal consonants I couldn't parse. But I didn't need to understand the words. I understood the tone. This wasn't a phone call. It was an execution order. I should clear my throat, announce myself, act like the professional server I was supposed to be. Instead, I stood there, heart slamming against my ribs, and listened. She switched back to Italian, her voice carrying that peculiar confidence of someone who believed she was completely alone. Il cecchino è pronto. 3 minuti dopo il dessert. The sniper is ready. 3 minutes after dessert. The container of burrata in my hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Heels clicked against the tile floor, moving toward the kitchen door. I pressed myself against the metal shelving, praying the shadows and stacked supplies would hide me. Through the gap between the fridge racks, I caught a glimpse of her, tall, elegant, wearing a black cocktail dress that looked like liquid night. Honey blonde hair swept up in a chignon, emerald necklace glinting at her throat. Vicky Roeder, the woman currently sitting at table 3, playing a devoted girlfriend to a man she'd just sentenced to death. She disappeared through the swinging door, her perfume lingering, something expensive and musky that now smelled like a grave. I stood there for 10 seconds, 15, 20, waiting for my lungs to remember how to work. When I finally stepped back into the kitchen, burrata forgotten, my mind was racing through what I'd heard. Table 3 near the window. 3 men. Sniper. 3 minutes after dessert. I pushed through into the dining room, and everything snapped into focus with terrible clarity. Table 3, corner position. Abelino Marino and Vicky Roeder, Chicago's most notorious couple. He was Italian Mafia. Everyone knew it, even if the society pages called him a businessman and philanthropist. She was a former model turned socialite. Their relationship had been tabloid fodder for 6 months. The dangerous man tamed by the beautiful woman. A fairy tale built on a foundation of lies. I scanned the restaurant with new awareness. My serving tray clutched against my chest like armor. 2 men near the bar, mid-30s, expensive suits, nursing drinks they hadn't touched in half an hour. They weren't watching the wine list. They were watching table 3. One man by the kitchen entrance, standing too still, his hand resting inside his jacket at an unnatural angle. My heart hammered. So hard, I thought my uniform blouse might show the impact. I looked back at table 3, at Abelino Marino laughing at something Vicky said, completely unaware that the woman stroking his arm had just orchestrated his assassination. That in less than 3 minutes, when the tiramisu and panna cotta were delivered and everyone was focused on dessert spoons and espresso, for men were going to end him, I could walk away, call in sick, clock out early, let whatever was about to happen just happen. Men like Abelino Marino didn't survive in his world by being innocent. He'd earned enemies. Maybe he'd earned this. But then I thought about my sister Mia, 14 years old, lying in that pediatric ward on the south side, fighting an illness we couldn't afford to treat. I thought about every doctor who'd worked overtime to keep her alive, every nurse who'd held my hand when I broke down in the hallway. I thought about mercy, unearned and freely given. I thought, I can't just watch someone die. So I grabbed a napkin from my apron, clicked my pen, and wrote 8 words that would either save his life or destroy mine. My reflection in the mirrored wall looked ghost pale as I made my way to table 3. Each step felt like wading through concrete. Time stretched and compressed. I was hyper-aware of everything. The scratch of polyester against my skin, the soft jazz playing through hidden speakers, the way Vicky's laugh sounded like breaking crystal. Your espresso, sir. My voice came out steady, professional, like I hadn't just overheard a murder plot, like my hands weren't shaking hard enough to rattle the cups on my tray. I set the demitasse down on the white tablecloth, precise and controlled. The espresso gleamed dark as oil in the candlelight. And then I did the thing every server is trained never to do. I touched him. My fingers brushed against the back of his hand as I slid the folded napkin beneath his saucer. The contact lasted maybe a second, a violation of every boundary between his world and mine, between the powerful and the powerless. Abelino Marino's eyes locked onto mine. They were darker than I expected, not cruel, but aware, the kind of eyes that calculated odds and identified threats before you finished speaking. His gaze held mine for a beat too long, and I felt something shift in my chest. Not attraction, but recognition, like looking into the eyes of a predator that could either ignore you or devour you whole. Read it, I mouthed. Please. His fingers closed around the napkin, palm concealing it completely. Is there something wrong with the service? Vicky's voice cut through the moment, smooth and venomous. Abelino's expression didn't change. He lifted his espresso cup, took a slow sip, and with his other hand, unfolded the note beneath the table where Vicky couldn't see. I stood there, tray pressed to my chest, watching his face for any reaction. Nothing. Not a twitch, not a breath. Just those dark eyes scanning the 8 words. Your girlfriend sold you out. They're watching you. Then his jaw tightened. Imperceptible unless you were looking for it. The smallest tell. He knew. Abelino set his cup down with a soft clink that somehow cut through the ambient noise of the restaurant. When he spoke, his voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of calm that preceded a storm. I'd like to make a toast. Vicky blinked, her smile wavering. Darling, we haven't even had dessert yet. Now. He gestured to me without looking away from her. Another glass. Champagne for my Bella. The 98 Krug. I hesitated, looking between them. Vicky's perfectly composed face showed the first crack, a tightness around her mouth, a stiffness in her shoulders. "I already have wine to Zorro," she said, voice light but strained. "Then you'll have champagne, too." It wasn't a suggestion. I walked back to bar on autopilot, retrieved the vintage Krug with trembling hands, and returned. The restaurant continued around us. Conversation, laughter, the gentle clink of silverware. Completely unaware that table 3 was a lit fuse waiting to ignite. I poured the champagne. Bubbles rose like tiny warnings. Abelino raised his glass, his eyes never leaving Vicky's face. And I realized with absolute certainty, the next 3 minutes would change everything. Abelino held the champagne flute between his fingers like it was a weapon. The bubbles rose in perfect columns, catching the light, mesmerizing. Vicky's smile had frozen on her face, her eyes darting between him and the glass with something that might have been confusion or might have been fear. "To loyalty," Abelino said, his voice carrying that particular Italian cadence that made every word sound like a caress or a threat. "To those who stand beside us in the dark." Vicky's hand trembled as she reached for her glass. Just slightly. Just enough. "Salute," she whispered. "Not yet." Abelino's fingers drummed once against the tablecloth, a slow, deliberate rhythm. "First, amore, tell me, the Castellano contract. Did you finalize the terms with Marco?" I should have walked away. Should have returned to the service station. Let whatever game he was playing unfold without me. But my feet wouldn't move. I stood there, tray clutched against my ribs, watching. Vicky blinked. "What?" "Darling, we're about to toast." "The terms," he repeated, softer now, deadlier. "You said you'd handle it this morning, before your hair appointment." "Aye, yes, of course." "Everything's set. Marco agreed to percentage split you wanted." Her words came too fast, tumbling over each other. Abelino's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Interesting. Because Marco's been dead for 3 days." The color drained from Vicky's face like someone had pulled a plug. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "I attended his funeral yesterday." Abelino continued, his tone conversational, pleasant. "Closed casket. Car accident," they said. "Very tragic." The air between them crystallized into something sharp and breakable. Vicky's hand moved toward her purse. Instinct, panic, survival. Abelino moved faster. The champagne flute left his hand in a violent arc, golden liquid spraying across the white tablecloth like blood spatter. It shattered against Vicky's wine glass, and suddenly everything was noise and chaos and motion. His other hand shot out and clamped around my wrist with bruising force. Pain exploded up my forearm. "Stupida puttana," he roared, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear, yanking me forward so hard I stumbled. "You spill wine on a 70,000 euro suit and think sorry is enough?" I hadn't spilled anything, but his fingers were crushing my bones and his eyes were screaming run, and I understood with perfect clarity. He was creating a scene, a distraction, a reason to move. "I'm sorry, sir. My voice cracked, genuine fear bleeding into performance. "Manager, adesso." He dragged me away from the table, his grip iron, pulling me toward the kitchen entrance with the kind of force that made other diners gasp in turn. Behind us, Vicky was on her feet. "Abelino." "Stop," she didn't. The kitchen door swung open under his shoulder. He hauled me through it, past the shocked line cooks, past the sizzling sauté stations, toward the service corridor that led to the back exit. "More vite," he hissed in my ear. "Move." And then the world exploded. The sound came first, a crack that split the air like thunder, too loud, too close. Then screaming from the dining room. More shots, rapid percussion, glass shattering. Abelino's hand shifted from my wrist to my waist, and he drove me forward, using his body as a shield, his other hand inside his jacket, reaching for something I knew was a gun. The service corridor stretched ahead, white tile fluorescent lights, the red glow of the emergency exit. We were 10 feet from the door when it burst open. A man filled the frame. Black tactical gear, rifle raised, his face obscured by shadow and intent. Abelino shoved me sideways into the wall, so hard my shoulder screamed. I hit the tile and dropped, and over my head I heard 2 shots, deafening, impossibly close, and the man in the doorway jerked backward and fell. Abelino's hand found my arm again, hauling me upright. My ears were ringing. The acrid smell of gunpowder burned my throat. "Can you run?" His voice cut through the noise. I nodded because I couldn't speak. "Then run." We burst through the emergency exit into Chicago night. The alley was dark, freezing, the wind cutting through my thin uniform like knives. Behind us, the sounds of chaos continued. Screaming, more gunfire, sirens already starting in the distance. Abelino pulled me toward a black Mercedes idling at the mouth of the alley, engine running, door already open, and I realized with a clarity that felt like ice water in my veins, I wasn't going home tonight. I might not be going home ever again. Abelino's hand on my arm was the only thing keeping me upright as we tore to the narrow service corridor. My shoes slipped on the polished floor, legs pumping, lungs burning. Behind us, the emergency exit door crashed open again. Footsteps, shouting in Italian, the metallic click of weapons being readied. "Left!" Abelino barked, yanking me around a corner. So sharply, I almost went down. We plunged into the labyrinth of the Palazzo's back channels, the arteries that kept the restaurant alive. Staff locker rooms, storage closets, the pastry kitchen that smelled like burnt sugar and fear. Abelino moved like he'd memorized the layout, each turn deliberate, calculated. But they were faster. 2 men rounded the corner ahead of us, cutting off our path to the loading dock, both in dark suits, both armed. The first one raised his pistol, and Abelino slammed me sideways through a doorway into the prep kitchen. Stainless steel counters, industrial mixers, shelves stocked with restaurant supplies, steam still rising from pots abandoned mid-service. The door exploded inward behind us. Abelino fired twice without looking, the shots echoing off tile and metal. One of the men went down, but the second dug behind a counter, returning fire. A bullet punched through the wall above my head, and I dropped, hands over my ears, every nerve screaming. Abelino was already moving, using the massive central prep station as cover, his gun tracking, waiting for a clear shot. The second man advanced, professional, methodical, his weapons sweeping the room. I was on the floor next to the industrial stove, paralyzed, useless. My hands shook so badly I could barely breathe. Then I saw it, a cast iron skillet on the burner beside me, still radiating heat from whatever had been cooking before the world ended. And next to it, a full stock pot of marinara sauce, the surface still bubbling, steam rising like smoke signals. The man stepped closer to Abelino's position, his back partially to me. I didn't think. Thinking would have stopped me. I grabbed the stock pot with both hands, heavy, scalding hot even to the handles, and hurled it. 15 pounds of boiling marinara sauce hit him square in the face. His scream was inhuman. He staggered backward, clawing at his eyes, his skin already blistering red. The gun fell from his hands, clattering against the floor. Abelino was on him in a heartbeat. One precise movement, and the man stopped screaming. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Abelino turned to look at me, his expression unreadable. Blood spattered his white shirt. His breathing was controlled, steady, like he'd just finished a light jog instead of killing 2 men. "Get up." His voice was flat, empty of emotion. I tried. My legs wouldn't cooperate. I was still holding the empty stock pot, my hands cramping around the handles. He crossed the distance between us, pulled the pot from my grip, and hauled me to my feet. "Can you keep moving?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure it was true. The sound of more footsteps echoed from the corridor. Multiple sets, approaching fast, coordinated. "How many?" I whispered. "Too many." He grabbed my wrist again and pulled me toward the far door, the one that led deeper into the kitchen complex, toward the wine cellar and cold storage. We burst into the next corridor and came face to face with 3 more men. For a fraction of a second, everyone froze. Then chaos. Abelino shoved me behind him and fired. The confined space made every shot deafening. I pressed against the wall, hands over my ears, tasting copper and fear. 1 man dropped. The other 2 scattered, returning fire, bullets sparking off metal and concrete. Abelino's gun clicked empty. He didn't hesitate, just dropped it and kept moving forward, closing distance. The nearest man tried to bring his weapon around, but Abelino was already inside his guard, one hand deflecting the gun, the other driving something, a knife I hadn't seen him draw, up under the man's ribs. The third man had a clear shot at Abelino's back. I saw the massive rolling rack beside me, loaded with sheet trays of something that had been prepped for tomorrow's service. 50 pounds of metal and food on wheels. I grabbed it and pushed. It rolled faster than I expected, gathering momentum, crashing into the third man just as he pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, punching into the ceiling, and then he was on the ground under the rack, trays clattering everywhere, his weapon skittering across the floor. Abelino finished it. Then he was pulling me again, through another door, down a flight of concrete stairs, the temperature dropping with each step. My uniform was soaked with sweat, despite the cold. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the railing. We hit the bottom, the sub-basement, all concrete and shadow, and the distant hum of refrigeration units. Abelino stopped, listening. Above us, more footsteps. Voices. They were regrouping, searching. He looked at me then, really looked, his dark eyes scanning my face like he was seeing me for the first time. "You fight," he said. Not a question, a recognition. I was still trying to remember how to breathe. "I fight," I whispered. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite approval, but acknowledgement. "Good," he said, "because this isn't over." The sub-basement led to a service tunnel that opened into the back alley 2 blocks from the Palazzo. Abelino moved to the darkness like he'd walked this route 1,000 times, his hand never leaving my wrist, pulling me forward when my legs threatened to give out. The black Mercedes was waiting exactly where he'd known it would be. Engine running, windows tinted dark as midnight. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out, older, gray-haired, wearing a suit that marked him as someone important in Abelino's world. Capo. The man's eyes swept over us, taking the blood, the torn clothing, the gun still in Abelino's hand. His expression didn't change. "The route is clear." 10 minutes ago it was clear, Abelino said, shoving me toward the back door. "Now it's compromised. Take Lakeshore. No stops." I collapsed into the leather seat, my entire body shaking. Abelino slid in beside me, already pulling out his phone, and the car surged forward into Chicago traffic. The city lights blurred past the windows. My ears were still ringing from the gunfire. My hand smelled like marinara sauce and something darker, more permanent. Abelino's fingers moved across his phone screen. Then he pressed it to his ear. The call connected on the first ring. "Luca." His voice was ice. "Listen carefully. The Palazzo is burned. Vicky orchestrated it with outside contractors. Minimum 4 shooters, possibly more. I need a full sweep of our locations. Every safe house, every office, everything." A pause. I could hear the tinny sound of a male voice responding, urgent, questioning. "No, she's not dead yet," Abelino said. "That's the problem." And Luca assumed the leak goes deeper. "I want background checks on everyone who knew my location tonight. Everyone." Another pause. Longer this time. "Yes, including the inner circle." Abelino's jaw tightened. "Start with Marco's phone records. He's been dead 3 days, but his accounts were accessed this morning. Someone's been using his credentials." I went very still. Marco, the name he'd used to test Vicky. The dead man whose ghost had exposed her lie. "Pull the security footage from our Michigan Avenue office." Abelino continued. "Specifically, the 8th floor access log from last Tuesday. The meeting about the Castellano shipment. I want to know exactly who was in that room." The voice on the other end said something that made Abelino's eyes narrow. "That's impossible. The Castellano routes were need to know. Only 5 people had that information." A beat of silence. Who confirmed the timeline with the Port Authority? My mind was racing, piecing together fragments. The Castellano shipment. Tuesday's meeting. Port Authority. And then I remembered the walk-in fridge. Vicky's voice speaking rapid Italian before she switched languages. One phrase I'd understood but hadn't registered as important until now. "Porto alle 8. Port at 8. "Wait," I said. Abelino's eyes cut to me, sharp as knives. He didn't lower the phone. When Vicky was on the phone, I said, my voice hoarse, "In the fridge," before she started speaking that other language. She said something about a port. 8 o'clock. Porto alle 8. Abelino's entire body went rigid. "Luca," he said into the phone, his voice deadly calm. "What time did Sal confirm the Castellano delivery to Port Authority?" The response came through, and I watched Abelino's face transform into something that made my blood run cold. 8 p.m., he said softly. "The only people who knew that timing were the 5 of us in Tuesday's meeting." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice could have shattered glass. "Pull Sal's financials. Every account, every transaction. Do it now." He ended the call and turned to look at me. Really look at me. Like I'd just become something more than a waitress who'd happened to overhear the wrong conversation. "Sal's been with me for 12 years, he said. "He's my logistics coordinator. He handles every shipment, every route, every timeline. He's also the one who told Vicky exactly when you'd be vulnerable." I said. The car turned onto Lakeshore Drive. The lake stretched out beside us, vast and black, reflecting nothing. Abelino's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and something flickered across his face. Not quite surprise, but close. "Sal's apartment is empty," he said. "His car is gone. Bank accounts were drained 2 hours ago." He looked at me. "How much of that phone call did you hear?" I closed my eyes, trying to pull back the exact words through the fog of adrenaline and fear. She switched languages twice. Italian, then something else. Russian, maybe, then back to Italian. She mentioned the port timing. She said something about positions being confirmed. And I struggled to remember. She said, "Lui non sa niente." He knows nothing. "He knows nothing," Abelino repeated, his accent making the words sound like a death sentence. She was telling him I was blind. "Not anymore," I said. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "No," he finally said. "Not anymore." The car turned off Lakeshore, heading into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Tall buildings, security gates, the kind of wealth that didn't advertise itself. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere Sal doesn't know about," Abelino said. "Somewhere no one knows about." He made another call, this one shorter, more cryptic. Codes and locations that meant nothing to me. When he finished, He turned to me one more time. "You just identified a traitor that would have cost me everything," he said. "That makes you either very valuable or very dangerous." My throat was dry. "Which one am I?" His smile was cold and sharp. "We're about to find out." The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building that didn't look special from the street. Just another expensive high-rise in the Gold Coast, the kind where doormen wore suits and never asked questions. But the private elevator required both a key card and a fingerprint scan, and the ride-up was long enough that I knew we were going somewhere most people would never see. The doors opened directly into the apartment. I stepped out into a space that looked like it had been designed by someone who understood that true power didn't need to announce itself. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the lake, the city sprawling below like a kingdom. Dark hardwood, leather furniture, art that was probably worth more than my entire life. But it was the details that made my stomach drop. The reinforced door that had locked behind us was sound like a bank vault. The cameras I could see in 3 corners, the ones I probably couldn't see everywhere else. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. Abelino shrugged out of his blood-spattered jacket and tossed it over a chair like the violence clinging to it was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. His white shirt was ruined, but he moved with the same controlled grace he'd had in the restaurant before the world had exploded. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the leather sofa. I didn't move. "I need to call my sister." "No." He pulled out his phone, his own, not the one he'd been using in the car. "You need to give me your phone. I need to tell her I'm okay. She's 14. She's in the hospital. She'll be terrified." "Your phone." He held out his hand, and his voice carried the weight of someone who didn't repeat himself. My fingers trembled as I pulled it from my apron pocket. The screen was cracked from when I'd hit the wall during the escape, but it still worked. All my texts to Mia, the hospital numbers, the payment reminders I couldn't afford to answer. He took it, and I watched him power it down with finality that felt like a door closing. "You'll see your sister," he said, "after we talk." "About what?" "About how I'm a prisoner now." The words came out sharper than I'd intended, fear crystallizing into anger. "About how you're alive." He moved to the bar, poured 2 fingers of something amber into a crystal glass. He didn't offer me one. Vicky had a team of 8 men in that restaurant. Professional contractors, well-paid, well-equipped. You should be dead. I should be dead. The fact that we're standing here is either luck or something else. I call it survival. I said, I'd call it leverage. He took a slow sip, watching me over the rim of the glass. Jessie Anderson, 23, community college dropout, currently employed at the Palazzo for 7 months. Before that, 3 different service jobs in 2 years, none lasting more than 6 months. The blood drained from my face. "How do you—" "Your younger sister, Mia, 14 years old, admitted to University of Chicago Medical Center 5 weeks ago. Diagnosis, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Prognosis, good with treatment. Cost of treatment, approximately $400,000. My vision tunneled. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "Your mother's deceased," he continued, his tone clinical, detached. "Your father's disability payments cover rent and utilities, barely. You're working 60-hour weeks trying to make payments on a debt that grows faster than you can touch it. Current outstanding balance between hospital bills and the private loan you took out, $347,000. I couldn't breathe. "You had no right." "I have every right." He set the glass down with a soft click. "You walked into my world tonight. You think that comes without consequences? Without me knowing exactly who you are and what you're worth?" "I saved your life," I said, and my voice cracked. "Yes." He moved closer, and I forced myself not to step back. "Which makes you valuable. And value, Jessie, can be negotiated. The room was too hot, too small, despite its size. What do you want? Your cooperation. Absolute, unquestioning cooperation. You stay here. You do exactly what I tell you. You speak to no one without my permission. You become a ghost. He paused. And in exchange, your sister's medical bills disappear. The private loan disappears. The debt that's been crushing you for 5 weeks vanishes like it never existed. The offer hung in the air between us, beautiful and terrible. $347,000. Mia's treatment guaranteed. Her life saved. All I had to do was give up mine. You're blackmailing me, I whispered. I'm offering you a solution. His eyes were dark, unreadable. You can walk out that door right now. Take your chances with whatever's left of Vicky's team. Hope they don't connect you to tonight. Hope your sister's insurance doesn't run out before you find another way to pay. Or you can sit down, accept the deal, and wake up tomorrow knowing she'll live. My hands were shaking. Why? Why would you do this? Because you heard things tonight that could destroy people more powerful than you can imagine. Because you identified a traitor I would never have caught in time. Because you threw boiling sauce at a man with a gun and saved my life twice. He tilted his head slightly. And because right now you're the only person in this city I know isn't trying to kill me. The truth of that settled over me like ice. How long? I asked. Until it's over. Until Vicky's dead and Sal's dead and everyone who tried to put me in the ground is buried instead. His voice was soft, final. Until I say you're free. I looked at the windows, the city glittering below, beautiful and unreachable. My sister gets her treatment, I said. All of it. No matter what happens to me. You have my word. The word of a murderer. The word of a man who keeps his promises. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? I thought about me in that hospital bed. So small. So scared. I thought about the bills I couldn't pay. The future I couldn't give her. I thought about the fact that I'd stopped being Jessie Anderson, waitress. The moment I'd slipped that napkin across the table. I took his hand. We have a deal. His grip was firm, final, and the moment he released my hand, I felt the weight of what I just agreed to settle over me like a shroud. There's a bedroom down the hall, Abelino said, already turning away, already dismissing me. Second door on the left. You'll find clothes that should fit. Get some sleep. We'll discuss the details in the morning. No. He stopped, turned back slowly, one eyebrow raised in a way that suggested no one told him no very often. No, he repeated, the word soft, dangerous. My heart was hammering, but I forced myself to stand straighter, to meet his eyes. We're discussing the details now. Because I'm not spending the night locked in a bedroom wondering if you're going to keep your word, or if I just signed away my freedom for nothing. Something flickered in his expression. Not quite amusement, but close. You think you're in a position to make demands? I think I'm in a position to negotiate. I took a breath, steadying myself. You said I was valuable. You said I identified a traitor that would have cost you everything. You said I saved your life twice. So let's talk about what that's actually worth. He crossed his arms, waiting. The penthouse was silent, except for the distant hum of the city below. $347,000, I said. That's what you're offering to clear my debt. But what I gave you tonight is worth more than money. Is it? His voice was neutral, giving nothing away. I gave you Sal's name. I gave you the port timing that proves he's been feeding information to Vicky. I gave you proof that your inner circle is compromised. I counted them off on my fingers, forcing my voice to stay steady. Without me, you have walked into whatever Sal had planned next, blind and alone. How much is that intelligence worth to you? Abelino's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You're suggesting the debt isn't sufficient payment. I'm suggesting that you're treating me like a liability you need to contain when you should be treating me like an asset you need to use. I took a step closer, refusing to let him tower over me. You said I'm the only person in this city you know isn't trying to kill you. That means I'm not just valuable. I'm irreplaceable. The silence stretched between us, taut as a wire. You want more money, he said finally. I want freedom. The word came out harder than I'd intended. Clear the debt first, before I tell you anything else. Before I help you one more time. Prove to me that your word means something, because right now all I have is the promise of a man who kills people in restaurant kitchens. His eyes went cold. Careful. Why? What are you going to do? Lock me up? Threaten my sister? I was shaking now, but not from fear. From fury. From exhaustion. From the weight of everything that had shattered tonight. You need me. You said it yourself. So stop treating me like a prisoner you're doing a favor, and start treating me like a partner who has something you can't get anywhere else. Partner. He said the word like it was foreign. You think throwing marinara sauce at one man makes you qualified to operate in my world? I think I saw things tonight that your 12-year veteran missed. I think I heard a phone call your entire security team didn't know was happening. I think I pieced together conspiracy while you were still testing Vicky with a fake dead man. I held his gaze. And I think that if you're smart, you'll realize that a waitress who notices everything is exactly the kind of person who can see the threats you can't. Something shifted in his expression. He studied me like he was seeing me for the first time, really seeing me. Not as a terrified girl who'd slipped him a napkin, but as something else entirely. You have keen observation skills, he said slowly. But observation isn't the same as strategy. Then test me. The words came out before I could stop them. Give me a problem. Let me prove I'm worth more than just my silence. Abelino moved to the window, his silhouette dark against the city lights. When he spoke, his voice was quieter, more thoughtful. Vicky knows I survived. Sal knows I'm hunting him. By now, they've regrouped, adjusted their plan. He turned back to me. If you were them, what would you do next? I forced myself to think past the adrenaline, past the fear, to step into the mind of someone planning murder. They'll assume you're at one of your known safe houses, I said. They'll assume you're calling in your inner circle, trying to figure out who to trust. They'll use that confusion. They'll make you come to them. How? They'll go after something you can't afford to lose. Something that will force you out into the open. I paused, the pieces clicking together. They'll target your operations, your shipments, maybe the Castellano delivery that Sal knows about. They'll create chaos, make you visible, then finish what they started. Abelino's eyes narrowed. The Castellano shipment arrives in 36 hours. Then you have 36 hours to figure out who in your organization you can trust and who else is working with Sal. I met his gaze. And you need someone who can move through your world without being recognized. Someone no one would suspect. Someone like you. Someone exactly like me. I took a breath. Clear the debt. Tonight. All of it. Show me the proof. And then let's talk about how I can actually help you instead of just being something you need to hide. He was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and turned the screen toward me. It was a bank transfer. $347,000 to the hospital's billing department and the private loan company. Time-stamped 3 minutes ago. I had it processed the moment you shook my hand, he said. Your sister's treatment is secured. Your debt is gone. It was never about leverage, Jessie. It was about insurance. My breath caught. But you're right, he continued. You're worth more than your silence. So here's the new deal. You become my eyes where I can't look, my ears where I can't listen. You helped me dismantle this conspiracy from the inside. And in exchange, you don't just get your freedom back. You get to decide when you walk away. He extended his hand again. Partner. This time, when I took it, it felt like signing a different kind of contract entirely. Partner. I agreed, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered if I'd just save myself or sentence myself to something far more dangerous than debt ever was. The dining table became our war room. Abelino spread out documents, photographs, encrypted tablets displaying information I probably wasn't supposed to see. Names, locations, financial records. The architecture of his empire laid bare in the cold glow of technology and paper. These are the people who knew my location tonight, he said, pointing to a list of 8 names. For confirmed dead, killed in the firefight, that leaves 4 alive. One of them is feeding information to Vicky. I leaned over the table, studying the faces. Men in expensive suits, women with sharp eyes. People who looked like they belonged in boardrooms or opera houses, not conspiracy theories. Sal's already exposed, I said. Who else had access to the Castellano timeline? 3 others. Antonio Ricci, my financial advisor. Elena Constantinu, who manages my legitimate business holdings. And Marco Santoro, no relation to the dead Marco I used to test Vicky. I picked up the photo of Elena. Dark hair, elegant, probably mid-40s. She manages your legitimate businesses. That means she knows where the legal operations end and the other ones begin. She's been with me for 8 years. How much does she know about Vicky? Abelino's expression shifted. Something dark passing through his eyes. Enough to hate her. Personal or professional? Both. He moved around the table, closer to where I stood. Elena wanted the position Vicky occupied. She made that clear. Then she has motive. I set the photo down. Jealousy makes people reckless. If Vicky offered her something, money, power, the satisfaction of watching you fall, Elena might have taken it. Or she's exactly what she appears to be, loyal and overlooked. Abelino pulled up a file on one of the tablets. Her financials are clean. No unusual deposits, no suspicious activity. Sal's accounts were clean until 2 hours before he ran. I countered. These people know how to hide money. He studied me, that calculating look I was beginning to recognize. You think like them. I think like someone who's been desperate enough to consider things she shouldn't. I met his eyes. Desperation makes you creative, makes you see angles other people miss. The air between us felt heavier, suddenly, charged with something I couldn't name. Abelino set the tablet down. Tomorrow, I need you to make contact with Elena. Tell her you're my new assistant, hired to help coordinate security after tonight's attack. See how she reacts. You want her to walk into her office and just talk to her? I want you to observe. Listen. Notice the things I'm too close to see. He moved closer still, near enough that I could smell the faint scent of his cologne mixed with gunpowder and adrenaline. If she's clean, she'll treat you like an inconvenience. If she's guilty, she'll treat you like a threat. My pulse quickened, and if she realizes what I'm really doing, then you'll do what you did tonight. You'll survive. The words hung between us like a challenge and a promise. We worked through the night, going over every detail, every connection, every possible angle of attack. Abelino tested me constantly, throwing scenarios at me, watching how I process information, how I connected disparate pieces into coherent patterns. I caught him staring more than once, his expression unreadable. What? I finally asked, somewhere around 3 a.m, when exhaustion was making my hands shake and my thoughts blur. You're good at this, he said quietly. Better than you should be. Is that a compliment or an accusation? It's an observation. He poured 2 glasses of water from a bar, handed me one. Our fingers brushed, and I felt the contact like an electric shock. "You're wasted as a waitress." "I was paying off a debt," I said, "not building a career. And now I'm apparently a spy for the Italian Mafia." I took a sip of water, buying time to think. Still not what I'd call a career path. "No," he agreed. "It's something else entirely." The way he said it made heat coil in my stomach, dangerous and unwelcome. I set the glass down too hard. I should get some sleep. If I'm meeting Elena tomorrow, I need be sharp. "Jessie." I stopped, turned back. He was standing too close again, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "You're afraid of me," he said. "Not a question." "Yes." "Good. Fear keeps you careful." His hand came up, fingers catching my chin, tilted my face toward the light so he could study me properly. "But you're not afraid enough to run." "Why?" My breath caught. "Because running won't save my sister. Won't save me. Won't change what I heard tonight or what I know." "And what do you know?" "That I'm in this now. That there's no going back to being invisible." I held his gaze, refusing to look away even though every instinct screamed at me to flee. That the only way out is through. Something shifted in his expression, heat and danger and recognition all tangled together. "You're going to be the death of me," he said, voice rough. "Or your salvation." His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I stopped breathing. "This is a mistake," he murmured. "Probably." He kissed me like he was claiming something that belonged to him, fierce and possessive and consuming. His hand slid into my hair, angling my head exactly where he wanted it, and I kissed him back with a desperation that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the electric charge that had been building between us since the moment I had touched his hand in the restaurant. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "This doesn't change the deal," he said. "I know. You're still free to walk away when this is over. I know that too." His forehead rested against mine, his breath warm against my lips. "Then why does it feel like neither of us is walking away from anything?" I didn't have an answer for that. So I kissed him again and let the question burn unanswered between us. Morning came too soon, pale winter light filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I woke on a leather sofa where I'd finally collapsed around for him, a cashmere throw draped over me that I didn't remember pulling down. Abelino was already awake, standing at the window with a phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian in a voice that could cut glass. When he finished the call, he turned to face me, and the heat from last night was gone, replaced by something colder and more focused. "Elena's clean," he said. "Luca ran a secondary sweep. Her loyalty isn't the problem." I sat up, pushing hair out of my face. "Then who?" "Antonio Ricci." He pulled up a photo on his tablet. A man in his 50s, silver-haired, distinguished. My financial advisor. He's been skimming for months, using Marco's credentials after he died. Small amounts, untraceable unless you know exactly where to look. Luca found the pattern 2 hours ago. Does he know you know? Not yet, which gives us an advantage. Abelino set the tablet down and moved to the dining table, where a new set of documents had appeared overnight. Maps, schematics, communications logs. Antonio's motivated by greed, not ideology. That makes him predictable, controllable. I joined him at the table, my mind already working through the implications. "You're going to use him. We're going to use him." He pointed to a location on the map, a warehouse district near the port. "The Castellano shipment arrives tomorrow night at Pier 17. Antonio knows the timing, the route, the security protocols. If Vicky and Sal are planning to hit it, he's the one feeding them the details. So we let him feed them false information. Partially false." Abelino's finger traced a different route on the map. We'll change the location. Move the shipment to Pier 9 instead. But we'll let Antonio think it's still going to 17. And when Vicky's team shows up at the wrong location, we'll be waiting. His eyes met mine, dark and predatory. But we need them all there. Vicky, Sal, whoever else they recruited. If we only catch half of them, the other half will regroup and come at us again. You need bait, I said slowly. Something they can't resist. I need you. The words landed like a physical blow. Abelino pulled up another document. Security footage from the Palazzo, time-stamped from last night. It showed me slipping the napkin to him. Showed the moment our eyes met. Showed everything. Vicky knows someone warned me, he said. She doesn't know who yet, but she'll be looking. And when she finds out it was you, a waitress, someone completely outside my organization, she'll realize you're a witness to everything. The phone call, the plot, her betrayal. My mouth went dry. She'll want me dead. She'll be desperate to kill you before you testify or talk. He closed the file, which means if we make you visible, if we make it look like you know more than you should, she'll come for you personally. She won't delegate it. She won't trust anyone else. And you'll use me as bait to draw her out. I'll use you as the key to bringing them all into one place where we have the advantage. He studied my face, looking for fear, for hesitation. Tomorrow night, you're going to meet with Antonio at a location Vicky will be monitoring. You're going to pretend to sell him information, details about my security, my safe houses, my operations. Information valuable enough that Vicky will want to intercept it personally. The plan was insane. Brilliant and insane. She'll know it's a trap, I said. She'll suspect it's a trap. But she'll also know it's her best chance to eliminate both of us before we eliminate her. Abelino leaned against the table, arms crossed. Greed and desperation make people take risks they shouldn't. We're counting on that. Where's the meeting? The Gilded Lotus. I stared at him. The restaurant where she made the phone call. Where this whole thing started. Neutral ground. Public enough that she'll feel safe bringing a small team. Private enough that we can control the variables. He pulled up the schematics of the restaurant. Floor plans, exit points, sight lines. You'll meet Antonio in the wine cellar at 9 p.m. Exactly where you were when you overheard Vicky the first time. The symmetry was almost poetic, almost cruel. What information am I selling him? The location of this penthouse. The names of my inner circle who survived last night. The routes I'll be using to move the Castellano shipment. He met my eyes. Real information. Convincing enough that Antonio believes it. And Vicky believes he believes it. You're gambling everything on her taking the bait. I'm gambling everything on you being convincing enough to sell it. His voice softened slightly. This only works if she thinks you're betraying me. If she believes you're desperate enough, scared enough, to turn on me to save yourself. I thought about last night, about the kiss that had tasted like danger and promises neither of us should make. Can you do that? He asked. Can you look Antonio in the eye and make him believe you're selling me out? I remembered every role I'd ever played. The polite waitress, the invisible servant, the girl who smiled while drowning in debt. I'd been performing my whole life. Yes, I said, I can do that. Abelino's expression shifted. Something that might have been pride flickering to the cold calculation. Luca will be in position with the team. The moment Vicky makes her move, we close the trap. He handed me a small earpiece, nearly invisible. You'll be wired. If anything goes wrong, if you're in danger, you say one word, marinara, and we extract you immediately. I turned the earpiece over my fingers. So small, so fragile. And if everything goes right, then tomorrow night this ends. He stepped closer, his hand finding my waist, pulling me against it with a possessiveness that made my breath catch. Vicky dies. Sal dies. Antonio dies. And you walk away free. Free, I repeated, the word tasting strange. His thumb traced my jawline. Unless you decide you don't want to walk away. The kiss was slower this time, deliberate, a seal on a plan that could destroy us both. When he pulled back, his voice was rough. Don't get killed tomorrow night. That's the plan, I said. Good. His forehead rested against mine. Because I'm not finished with you yet. Neither of us mentioned that he might not get the choice. The gilded lotus looked exactly the same as it had 2 nights ago, all soft lighting and expensive ambience, as if violence had never touched its walls. I walked through the main dining room in a borrowed black dress and heels that weren't mine, my hair pulled back, the nearly invisible earpiece tucked behind my ear like a secret. Antonio Ricci was already waiting in the wine cellar when I descended the stairs. He looked up from his phone, silver hair perfectly styled, his expression carefully neutral. Miss Anderson, I wasn't certain you'd actually come. I'm here. I forced my voice to stay steady, channeling every ounce of fear I actually felt into performance. Do we have a deal or not? That depends on what you're offering. He gestured to the small table that had been set up between the wine racks, the same location where I'd hidden when Vicky made her call. The symmetry was suffocating. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the document Abelino had prepared. Names, locations, routes. Everything that would look like betrayal. Full security protocols for the penthouse. The backup safe houses. The New Castellano route. I slid the phone across the table, and the names of everyone who survived the attack at the Palazzo. Antonio picked up the phone, his eyes scanning information with an intensity that made my pulse spike. Above us, I could hear the soft sounds of the restaurant, conversation, laughter, the clink of glasses. Normal life, continuing while we plotted murder in the basement. This is comprehensive, he said slowly. Almost too comprehensive. Why would you give this to me? Because Abelino Marino is going to get me killed. I let my voice crack just slightly. I saved his life, and he locked me in a penthouse like a prisoner. He knows about my sister and my debt. He's using them as leverage to keep me silent. I'm not dying for him. I'm not letting Mia suffer, because I made a mistake. It was close enough to the truth that the lie came easily. Antonio studied my face, looking for tells for weaknesses. And the money? 50,000. That's what you promised. Enough to disappear. Start over somewhere he won't find me. He'll hunt you. Let him try. I held his gaze. By the time he realizes what I've done, you and your associates will have already moved on him. He'll be too busy dying to worry about one waitress. Antonio's mouth curved into something approximating a smile. You're more pragmatic than I expected. I'm a survivor. I stood, smoothing down my dress. The money transfers tonight, or I walk out of here and tell Abelino everything. Agreed. He extended his hand, and I forced myself to shake it, forced myself not to show the revulsion crawling up my spine. Pleasure doing business with you, Miss Anderson. I turned to leave, made it 3 steps toward the stairs. The lights went out. For one heartbeat, there was only darkness and the sound of my own breathing. Then the emergency lighting kicked in, dim red glow that turned the wine cellar into something from a nightmare. Antonio was on his feet, hand inside his jacket, reaching for a weapon. The door at the top of the stairs opened, and Vicky Roeder descended like a queen entering her throne room. She wore white again, pristine and deadly, her blonde hair swept up, her expression carved from ice. Behind her, 3 men in tactical gear, weapons raised. And behind them, moving like a shadow, Sal. Antonio, Vicky said, her voice carrying that same cold precision I remembered from her phone call. You were supposed to call me the moment she arrived. I was verifying the information. You were being greedy. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs, her eyes finding me in the red-lit darkness. Hello, Jessie. We haven't been properly introduced. I'm the woman whose fiancé you tried to steal. My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice level. I didn't steal anything. I'm just trying to survive. By selling out the man you saved? She tilted her head, studying me. That's either very smart or very stupid. I haven't decided which. Does it matter? I gestured to Antonio. You have what you wanted. The information's real. Use it. Oh, I intend to. Vicky's smile was a knife. But first, I need to make sure you haven't told anyone else about our little arrangement. One of her men grabbed my arm, pulling me away from Antonio, checking me for weapons, for wires. I held my breath as his hands patted down my sides, my back, came dangerously close to the earpiece. A gunshot exploded in the confined space. The man searching me jerked and fell, and suddenly the wine cellar erupted into chaos. Abelino came through a service entrance I hadn't known existed, flanked by Luca and 4 other men, their weapons already firing. The tactical team scattered, returning fire, bottles exploding in crystalline bursts as bullets tore through vintage wine. I dropped, crawling behind the nearest rack as the world dissolved into noise and violence. Through the gaps between bottles, I saw Abelino moving like death incarnate, precise, efficient, brutal. One of Vicky's men went down, then another. Sal raised his weapon toward Abelino's back, and Luca put 2 rounds in him before he could fire. Antonio tried to run, made it halfway to the stairs before Abelino's bullet found him. And then there was only Vicky, backing toward the wall, her own gun raised but shaking, her perfect composure finally cracking. Tesoro, Abelino said, the endearment twisted into something obscene. Did you really think I wouldn't see you coming? You're supposed to be at the port, she hissed. The shipment. There is no shipment. There's only this. Only you and me and the end of your ambition. He advanced slowly, giving her nowhere to go. You betrayed me for what? Money? Power? The pathetic dream of ruling an empire you didn't build. I would have been better than you, she spat. You would have been dead the moment you tried. His voice dropped to something quieter, more terrible. Because you forgot the first rule, amore. You never bet against a man who has nothing left to lose. Her gun came up, finger tightening on the trigger. I moved without thinking, grabbed a wine bottle from the shattered rack, and hurled it with everything I had. It hit her wrist with a sickening crack. The gun fired wild, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling. And then Abelino was on her, his hand closing around her throat, driving her back against the wall. You tried to kill me in my own city, he said softly. In front of my people. You made me look weak. Vicky clawed at his hand, choking, her face turning red. That, Abelino said, was your last mistake. I looked away before he finished it. When the silence finally came, it was deafening. Abelino found me in the shadows between the wine racks, pulled me to my feet, his hands checking for injuries with a tenderness that contrasted brutally with what he'd just done. You're okay, he said. Not a question. I'm okay, I confirmed, though my hands were shaking. Around us, Luca and his team were already moving, cleaning, erasing, disappearing the evidence like ghosts. This would be reported as a gas leak, a tragic accident. The Gilded Lotus would close for renovations and reopen in 6 months under new management. Nothing would tie back to us. Abelino's hand found my face, tilting it toward his. You threw the bottle. She was going to shoot you. I know. His thumb traced my cheekbone. You keep saving my life. It's becoming a habit. His kiss tasted like gunpowder and possession, and something darker that I didn't want to name. When he pulled back, the wine cellar was empty except for us. "It's over," I whispered. "Yes," he agreed. "It's over." But the way he held me, like he had no intention of ever letting go, suggested something else was just beginning. 3 days after the wine cellar, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of Abelino's penthouse, watching the sun set over Chicago. The city spread below like a kingdom of glass and steel, a million lights flickering to life as darkness crept in from a lake. Behind me, Abelino ended another call in rapid Italian, his voice carrying that particular edge that meant someone was being reminded who held their leash. The past 72 hours have been a surgical dismantling of everyone who'd been complicit in Vicky's conspiracy. Business partners quietly bought out, politicians reminded of their obligations, loose ends cauterized of the efficiency of a man who'd spent decades building an empire. The official story was simple. Vicky Roeder and several associates had died in a tragic accident at the Gilded Lotus. Gas leak, terrible tragedy. The family sent their condolences. No one questioned it. No one dared. "It's done," Abelino said, coming to stand beside me at the window. He'd showered and changed into fresh clothes, the violence of the past few days erased from his appearance, if not from the cold calculation in his eyes. Antonio's accounts had been distributed to his surviving family. Sal's assets had been seized and redistributed. The Castellano shipment arrived without incident, and Vicky's family sent a very generous donation to the charity of my choice and a formal apology for any inconvenience her actions may have caused. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. They understand the situation. I studied his reflection in the glass, the sharp lines of his face, the controlled power in how he held himself. A man who just executed 5 people and absorbed their territories without breaking stride. "Your sister was discharged from the hospital this morning," he continued. "Full treatment completed successfully. Prognosis is excellent. I've arranged for her to stay with your father in a new apartment in Lincoln Park. 3 bedrooms, paid in full, along with a trust fund that will cover her education and medical needs indefinitely." My throat tightened. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He turned to face me fully. "You fulfilled your end of our bargain. I keep my promises." The envelope appeared in his hand. Thick, official. He offered it to me. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were documents, the hospital bills marked paid in full, the private loan stamped satisfied, a bank statement showing an account in my name with a balance that made my vision blur, and at the bottom, a single piece of paper, a release form, my freedom signed and notarized. "You can leave," Abelino said quietly. "Right now if you want. Walk out that door. Go to your family. Start the life you should have had before all of this. I won't stop you. I won't contact you. You'll be completely free." I stared at the papers, at the proof that I could walk away from the violence and the darkness and the man who dragged me into his world. "Or," he continued, "you can stay." The word hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I looked up at him, at the face I had memorized over the past 3 days, the controlled brutality, the fierce intelligence, the unexpected tenderness he showed only when he thought I wasn't looking. "Stay and do what?" I asked. "What you've been doing. Be my eyes where I can't look, my voice where I can't speak, the person I trust when I can't trust anyone else." He moved closer, his hand finding my waist with that possessive certainty that made my breath catch. "Stay and help me build something that won't crumble the moment someone gets greedy or ambitious. You're asking me to be part of this empire. I'm asking you to help me run it." His other hand came up, fingers threading through my hair. "You're wasted anywhere else, Jessie. You think like they do, see things I miss, move through worlds I can't access. You're not a waitress anymore. You haven't been since the moment you slipped me that napkin. I killed someone 3 days ago. I whispered. I helped you execute 5 people. Yes. No apology, no justification. And you'll help me again, because that's who you are now. Not the girl burdened by debt and fear. The woman who chose survival, who chose power. I looked back out at the city, at the lights stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, Mia was safe, healthy, free from the shadow of death that had haunted her. Somewhere out there, my father was sleeping in a bed he owned, in an apartment he'd never have to leave, because of what I'd done, because of the choices I'd made in the darkness. I thought about walking away, about being normal again, invisible, safe. The idea felt like putting on a costume that no longer fit. If I stay, I said slowly, I'm not your prisoner. I'm not your assistant or your kept woman or some pretty thing you parade around. No, Abelino agreed. You're my partner, my equal in every way that matters. And when people ask who I am, his smile was dark, predatory, proud. You're the woman who sees everything, the one who saved my life and earned her place at my side. He pulled me closer until I could feel the heat of him, the controlled violence that lived just beneath his surface. You're Jessie Anderson, and you're mine. The possessiveness should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like recognition. I set the release form on the window ledge, watched it flutter slightly in the air current from a heating vent. I'm staying, I said. Why? I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes directly, because I threw boiling marinara at a man with a gun and discovered I was good at it, because I walked into a wine cellar knowing I might die and came out knowing I could survive anything, because somewhere between the kitchen corridor and here, I stopped being afraid of what I'm capable of. And what are you capable of? I kissed him, hard and certain. Everything. When I pulled back, his expression was fierce, triumphant. Then let's show them, he said. We stood at the window together, watching night claim the city. Below us, Chicago pulsed with life and secrets and power waiting to be seized. And above it all, in a penthouse fortress where violence and salvation had found common ground, a waitress who'd slipped a note to a killer became a queen who ruled beside him. The debt was cleared. The threat was eliminated. The normal life I'd lost was buried with Vicky in an unmarked grave, and I discovered I didn't mourn it at all. This was who I was now. Survivor, strategist, the woman who'd chosen darkness and found her own kind of freedom in its depths. Abelino's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining. Welcome to the Empire, he murmured. I squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of the choice settle into my bones like acceptance. Let's build something they'll never forget. And as the last light faded from the sky, we turned away from the window and toward whatever came next, together, equal, unbreakable, king and queen of a brutal Italian empire, killer and survivor, his and mine. Sometimes the choices we make in moments of crisis define us more than years of careful planning ever could. Jessie Anderson walked into the Palazzo as an invisible waitress burdened by impossible debt, and she walked out as a woman who discovered her own power in the darkest circumstances imaginable. Her story reminds us that survival isn't always about staying safe. Sometimes it's about recognizing when the only way forward is through the fire. She didn't choose the easy path. She chose the one that demanded everything from her and gave her back something she'd never had: agency, power, and the freedom that comes from refusing to be a victim. We all face moments when we must decide: stay invisible and safe, or step into the unknown and claim what we're truly capable of. Jessie chose, and in choosing, she transformed. Thank you for joining me on this dark, thrilling journey through Chicago's underworld. If Jessie's transformation resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more intense, character-driven stories. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. Was it the wine cellar confrontation, the first kiss, or that final choice at the window? And let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with readers around the world. Until next time, remember, you're stronger than you think, and sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is discover just how powerful you really are.